Hello, I'm Mario Toneguzzi, and I'm taking care of business. Joining me today is Duane Bratt, political science professor at Mount Royal University in Calgary. Duane, we're in the midst of a leadership race, federal Conservative Party. There's a couple of the front runners out there, obviously, are Pierre Poilievre, Jean Charest, and Leslyn Lewis. What's your gut tell you, and who's going to win this?
I mean, it's still a long time away. They can sign up memberships for another several weeks. The race election actually occurs in September. But right now, Pierre Poilievre has got to be seen as the front runner. He came out first. He's got a whole raft of endorsements from sitting MPs right across the country. He's got Jenny Byrne running his campaign, and Jenny was the last campaign manager under Stephen Harper. He's also got John Baird working on his campaign, and John was a former senior cabinet minister with Stephen Harper. So Poilievre, with his videos, with his attacks on Trudeau, has really established himself as a Red Rock, strong conservative, and that gives him the lead, that gives him the edge. But he's got some real detriments. Detriment is he is seen as too ideologically polarizing. He wants to get rid of the carbon tax. He wants to liberalize gun laws. He met with the trucker convoy. So while he's got some real skill and he could easily win the leadership, how would he do in a general election? And as a result, Jean Charest has thrown his hat in the ring. And you couldn't ask for a more different person than Jean Charest. There's a generational difference. Charest is 20 years older than Poilievre. Charest was leader of the Progressive Conservative Party before the merger. Then he was premier of Quebec. But he's been out of partisan politics for a decade and federal politics for 25 years. So do people remember who Jean Charest, particularly out here in Western Canada? Mm-hmm. While Poilievre wants to get rid of the carbon tax, Charest supported a price on carbon and brought Quebec into a cap and trade system back in 2007. Charest supports the long gun registry back in the day. Poilievre does not. But Charest has won elections. General elections. He has governed a very difficult coalition like the Quebec Liberals, and whoever governs the Conservatives has a lot of governing problems because there's a lot of internal divisions in there. Yeah. So those are the two big front runners, and Charest launched his bid in Calgary last night, not drawing nearly the same sort of crowds as Poilievre did in his tour of Saskatchewan. But I think he deliberately chose a small venue. His strength is going to be in Atlantic Canada. His strength is going to be in Ontario, and we'll see about battleground Ontario.
Can you, I'm just curious, can you talk about Poilievre and, his use of social media there is not a day that goes by that I don't see a new video of him. First of all, the use of social media, but also the fact that, he's running for prime minister. In all these ads, he's not running for conservative leadership. He's just going for prime minister, and that's what the message, I guess, is.
Oh yeah, he's very good at his messaging, and a lot of those messages get repeated. He has a very active YouTube channel that highlights his speeches in Parliament and in committee, and even saying "I'm running for prime minister" establishes him as the government in waiting. That's not the way our system works, but most people don't understand how the system works, and instead he's putting the goal right in front. So they are very effective tools, and I think that puts him with a real edge in Charest. Charest is well known as being a very effective campaigner. All you had to do was watch him on the stump during the '95 referendum. where he was Captain Canada and going into the Sovereigntist Hornet's Nest. But it's a real difference in approach. Charest is very much old school, and Poilievre is clearly cutting edge.
Interesting, yeah. Anyone else that might pop in?
The other two interesting people are Leslyn Lewis. And Lewis came out of nowhere to finish third in the race back in 2020. Now she has a seat in Parliament. She is the darling of the social conservatives, those that want to bring in an abortion law and relitigate conversion therapy. She is also on the anti-vax side. And had some really stern warnings about vaccine mandates in Parliament, and whether this is tied to the anti-vax or not, but she's appeared on a lot of far-right media outlets like the Rebel and the Post Millennial. So the same sort of crowd that the People's Party of Canada supports. Lewis is going after that small group as well. That's not enough to win, but the social conservatives have an important voice in the Conservative coalition. They will rally around her. Then the question will be, where will her supporters go on subsequent ballots? And my guess is they'll go to Pierre Poilievre. The other person it looks like he'll announce on Sunday is Patrick Brown. Patrick Brown is the former leader of the Ontario Conservative Party, and he was months away from likely becoming premier of the province when he got brought down over a sex scandal. But a sex scandal that we now know was a bit over-torqued. CTV National in particular pursued the story, and this week have had to apologize for some of the reporting in there and some of the mistakes that were made. So whether that scandal lingers with Brown or not, we'll have to see. Brown, though, didn't drop out of politics. Brown became mayor of Brampton, one of the cities in the 905 region. That's an important area for any party to win support in a general election. Brown is a well-known political organizer, particularly with the Indo-Canadian community. And in fact, Brown was an organizer for Jean Charest back in the 1990s when he was young. So it shows just how intertwined these conservative characters are. Can Brown break through between Poilievre and Charest? It's possible. He came out of nowhere to win the PC leadership in Ontario. But if he doesn't, I would expect that his supporters would go to Jean Charest. And apparently they've already made sort of a back channel pact that they would endorse one another depending on who is ahead in the balloting.
So we all know, have looking in the past at federal elections that where the certain support is in the country, and it's always been. But it just seems that the election is won in the Greater Montreal area and the Greater Toronto area in Southern Ontario. Can any one of those four conservatives make any inroads there that to defeat either Trudeau or, who knows, Chrystia Freeland?
So on the general election, I think Charest's got an opportunity in Quebec. Quebec voters have always gone with favorite sons.
Yeah.
And Ontario likes people that also get support in Quebec. So I think Charest's got an edge there. And Patrick Brown, I think, has a good advantage. The question that they have to ask, though, is even to get to the general election, they have to beat Pierre Poilievre within the Conservative Party. And so Poilievre's strength is he is loved within the Conservative Party, particularly here out west. He grew up in Calgary, went to the University of Calgary, so he has deep roots in the prairie, even though he represents a riding in Ottawa. The question is, can Poilievre appeal to non-conservatives, which you need to do in a general election? And that's the pitch that Charest and Brown are going to make, is that you need to be more moderate. Screaming into a camera about just inflation over and over again may get you all sorts of likes and may get you funding from conservatives. But what about the rest of Canadians?
Yeah, let's switch gears for a second here, Duane. Talk a little bit about another leadership race, so to speak, and provincially, and the upcoming leadership review by the UCPs here in Alberta, looking at Jason Kenney's stature as leader. Where do you think that's at right now? We're less than a month away from that.
So in handicapping this, let's look at the strengths that Kenney brings. Strength number one is he's had a lot of really good news lately. Brought in a balanced budget, dropped COVID restrictions. More money is flowing into the treasury because of the rising price of oil. And then he took consumer outreach last Monday when he temporarily dropped the gas tax and is going to offer electricity rebates. And he can do so because so much money is coming into the provincial treasury through royalties as a result of the price of oil. And Kenney is a formidable political organizer with pretty much full control over the party apparatus. That's the strength he brings. The weakness, on the other hand, is his polling numbers remain dismal. He's gone up to 30%, but any other politician would look at 30% as being absolutely horrible. There have been surveys showing that even within UCP voters, he's below 50%. And even with likely UCP voters in the next election, he's around 50%.
Yeah.
Then you have the fact that almost 5,000 people, 5,000 UCP members have signed up to vote in the April 9th leadership review. That's an astounding number. There were only 600 that came to the AGM. And typically, in the case of an AGM, it's a weekend-long affair. This is a vote. So people are going to drive for several hours to Red Deer to cast a ballot. You're not going to do that for the status quo. What motivates people to get into the car or rent a bus to go down to Red Deer is to remove the leader. So the fact that the turnout is so high suggests that Kenney is in a lot of difficulty. He has also said that all he needs is 50% plus one.
Yeah.
That's not been the case in other leadership races. Joe Clark stepped down with 66%, Ralph Klein at 55%. Ed Stelmach and Alison Redford got 77% and were gone soon after. So by setting the bar so low, which is the legal threshold of the party, you wonder, just how much strain he is on. And then you've got the by-election. There's a by-election in Fort McMurray on Tuesday. There's no winning scenario for Kenney here. He's got an NDP candidate who is running against Jason Kenney. He's got a Wild Rose Independence Party candidate who's running against Jason Kenney. And the UCP candidate is Brian Jean, who is also running against Jason Kenney. And Brian Jean is likely to win that election.
Yeah.
And then finally, in the last 2 days, there's been a number of disqualifications of UCP candidates in local nomination races who were running against Kenney loyalists.
Yeah.
And the party stepped in on mysterious grounds to disqualify them. This all shows that Kenney is in a lot of strain and a lot of trouble in a election in less than a month.
Well, that'll be interesting. And one last question I had for you, and being a journalist myself, and I'm interested in your take on this, but it was revealed here just the other day that QR Radio is giving Jason Kenney a radio show. What did you think about that?
Yeah, again, it has to be viewed in light of April 9th because John Voss, the program director for CHED and QR77, has said they've been trying to get him for a couple of years, but he's only agreed now. Yeah. And they're not sure if it will go beyond April 9th. So, and we have a situation where they say this is not paid programming. The government of Alberta, the UCP party, is not paying for the airtime, but the government of Alberta is buying the ads on the show. Yeah. Well, that sounds pretty much the same to me. We have had a history in this province of premieres with radio shows. The Back to the Bible Hour was on for decades, hosted by either Bill Aberhart or Ernest Manning, but it was a non-political show. It was religious broadcasting. This is an overtly political show. So in general, I think greater access to the premier is a good thing, but I'm uncomfortable about choosing one outlet over another outlet and giving them a monopoly. And you wonder, all call-in shows have screeners.
Yeah.
How is this going to be screened? How is this going to be paid for? Again, is this something that would be offered to a different premier, of a premier of a different party? We'll have to see.
Or Rachel Notley.
Exactly. So is this about the party leadership race, or is this simply access to the premier? I think it's about the party leadership race.
All right, super. Thanks, Duane, again for joining us.
All right, thanks, Mario.
All right, that was Duane Bratt, political science professor at Mount Royal University. This is Mario Toneguzzi, and this has been Taking Care of Business. Thanks for joining us today.